Hello, everyone. Welcome to the AsyncAPI Conference. And I'm pretty excited today to present to you another topic that is near and dear to my heart. Today, I will be joined by my colleague, Jesse Menning, and I'll bring him onto the stage. Jesse, how's it going?
Hey, doing great. Great to be here. Thank you.
That's great. That's great. I'm excited for today's talk. We'll be talking about async API and event API products, as the title of our talk reflects. So I will go ahead and share my screen. So the title for today's talk is Async API and Event API products, a match made in heaven. Jesse, are you ready to start talking about this? And I'm throwing some questions at you. Some of the questions you have not seen before, so I want to see how you perform on the spot. Are you ready for this?
I think I'm ready, but you never really know. So let's give it a shot.
Yeah. So I people don't really expect my next steps. That's my motto in life. Don't let others know what your next steps are.
Keep them
All right.
agile. Good.
So let's do this. So what is the problem that we're kind of talking about today? Like I want to like step back a little bit and present the problem to you, Jesse, and then we will talk more about this. So in my previous talk earlier today at the Async API conference, I presented an idea about event-driven architecture and how I compared EDA to a bowl of salad, and how there's so many different ingredients in this bowl of salad, and I compared it to um, when approaching event driven architecture in general, there's so many different components. Some of these components, you got to design your event driven architecture, you have to mock and test your event apis. There's so many different things about managing the life cycles of events. And I really like this slide in particular because it gives people the idea and the importance of that. Implementing an event driven architecture is not just about the runtime aspect of things. It's not just about choosing an event broker or an intermediary layer to transfer your events. There's so many different components. And in today's talk, we're going to particularly choose two ingredients in this bowl of salad, which is the sharing and exposing the event APIs. Before passing it to you, Jesse, if you're presented by a bowl of salad, what is your favorite ingredients in this bowl of salad?
Well, actually, I was thinking exactly that as you were talking, and not only that, but like what element would share and expose event APIs be in that salad? And I would have to say that sharing and exposing APIs, I would say, is the bacon bits and the cheddar cheese of salads. That's the stuff that
Hmm.
people actually really like. It can only exist in the salad because you have a baseline of like arugula or healthy things. That would be your sort of your discovery, life cycle management. These are the things that you build the salad upon. But the stuff that people focus on and really, really enjoy, of course, are the things that are not quite as healthy for you, the bacon and the cheddar. So I think the point being here being sort of a labored metaphor, but
Hmm.
you do all this stuff in a quest to deliver business value, and the
Hmm.
more boring arugula lifts things up and allows you to do the really cool stuff with sharing and exposing event APIs. And I think that's probably why you're so pumped up to talk about it, because it is the fun part
Hmm.
of thing.
It is. It's definitely the fun aspect of things because that really kind of brings your event driven architecture to a whole new level. So like, it's just like adding, and there's like a lot of creativity in this because you know a bowl of salad is a piece of art for sure. You could have a lot of creativity added to it, and this is where the sharing and exposing of event APIs come in place. So let's delve more into this. Jesse, why do we need to expose APIs as products? So just in general, let's step back a little bit from the EDA world. Let's step back from eventing and asynchronous APIs and in general, when anybody is dealing with APIs, let's take REST APIs as an example. Why do we need to expose APIs as products?
I think the API revolution was needed and certainly very fruitful. But at the end of the day, I think you need to justify things either through business value or through
Hmm.
monetization or uh, things of that nature. Otherwise, you're not going to garner the attention that you really need to fully implement a technical project. So again, moving back to to the salad metaphor, if you want this to move forward, you need to have some bacon and some cheddar available for people to really grasp into. So I think that exposing APIs as products really sort of appeals to both technical people and to business people, and helps move APIs forward a as a project within a particular enterprise.
Right. And one thing that every time I talk about API products, just in general, when it comes to working in an enterprise level where there's so many different organizations that are involved in the particular business value that you're giving a solution for, or there's different departments, or you're dealing with other stakeholders in the same industry, and they want to make use of the same kind of content that your APIs provide. So that is where bundling, from my perspective, bundling APIs and the functionalities of APIs and exposing them as products for other stakeholders to consume. This is where the power of API products just come in general. So, we talked about the importance of API products from an industry perspective and kind of a business operation side of things. Let's delve into the technicalities of API products and the definition of an API product by itself. What is an API product?
I think you really hit upon it. Using the word bundle, I think, is really appropriate. Where you have, and speak of the devil, you have a slide based on this.
Mhm,
So I think the key really is the bundle, and you have individual APIs that you have laid out across there on the top, API 1, 2, and 3, and you can think of those as maybe more of a business line of business style API that they accomplish
mhm,
very specific things within the business. And then along the left hand side there, you have API products. And so the creation of API product really is the bundling, the mixing and matching of lower level APIs into a higher level product. I think we talked a little bit about abstraction. The API product creates a higher level abstraction away from what's actually implementing the APIs
mhm,
into
mhm.
this product that may take something from over here and something from over there, shove them into something that makes sense in a sort of uh, accumulation that doesn't necessarily reflect the underlying infrastructure. So I think there's a power in having things be a little bit more abstract and combining APIs into combinations that make sense to particularly external partners.
Mhm.
They don't care how you're making the magic happen. They just want to have a collection of things that they can do that make sense at a business level.
Interesting. Yeah. And you hit the nail right in the head when you mentioned kind of trying to bridge the gap between the business requirements and the underlying technical implementation. At the end of the day, the stakeholders, they just want to have kind of like a business requirement. So kind of here, there's an example of like there's different pricing levels out of product, and there's REST APIs behind the scenes that deal with the different pricing level. A stakeholder or another organization or another department or just another stakeholder in general might just want to consume different pricing levels without knowing what are the underlying APIs that makes this API product, or without having exposure to other APIs. Let's say as an organization, I
Yeah,
want to bundle my pricing APIs under one product and just expose this. I don't want to expose different aspects of my business in the same bundle, pretty much.
totally. Or you want to have a read-only view of pricing, but you don't definitely don't want to have write access available to it. So you expose different abilities to interact with things, and also different levels of service, perhaps, if you want to
Mhm.
prioritize different customers over each other.
Nice. The idea of API products in the REST world has been around for a while, and due to the popularity of REST APIs over the past years and years, there has been a lot of tooling on top of REST APIs that makes working with REST APIs pretty easy, pretty nice, and makes kind of um, the collaboration process and moving forward for either innovation and creativity around REST APIs much easier. Now,
Fun,
let's say that
even
I
fun.
am fun. Exactly. Yeah, that is like a very important thing because working with APIs, if there aren't a lot of tooling around it, it would be pretty boring. But if there's kind of like a lot of tooling around it and you start working with bundling these APIs and building applications on top of those exposed APIs, things start to get much more fun.
Yeah, for sure. It's like a
Yeah,
collaboration. It's like you start grabbing things together from Nike, and you bring in together some other cool company, and all of a sudden you got like this amazing product that you
totally.
created that's bigger than the sum of its parts.
Right. Um, so moving on to kind of the next thing I wanted to talk about, bundling your APIs as API products is cool and everything, but it is also very important to associate specifications and documentation around these APIs. So when it comes to REST APIs, you know, bundling them and exposing them as API products, what is the technology and the tooling behind REST APIs that would enable kind of the distribution of this bundled API product?
Yeah, I mean it's hugely driven by OpenAPI,
Hmm.
and I think when we talk about API products, certainly my mind goes to sharing those things externally. And if you don't have a common, more global standard that you can write to, that interchange,
Hmm.
especially between enterprises, really falls by the wayside. So I think Open API and the emergence of truly what I think is a global standard has really driven the ability to expose APIs at a much greater level. And then you start getting these great gains from trade, the tooling that you're talking about, the exposure of really great API products that are both monetized and really,
Hmm.
really useful for people who are trying to make something happen that may be totally different than the people who created the API product in the first place envisioned. And that I think is a really a powerful phenomenon.
Right. I cannot agree with you more on that front. Um, so we've talked about REST APIs, API
Yeah.
products, the tooling around REST APIs, and the specification that drives that kind of the distribution and the collaboration aspect of REST APIs, and standards such as Open API. But how does this relate to the EDA world, Jesse? So what do you think? How does this relate? We talk a lot about REST APIs. How can we relate
Yeah.
this to EDA world?
Well, it's interesting. Clearly, I think there's the possibility of a parallel, and everyone on this conference, I think, is really passionate about async API and event-driven
Hmm.
communication in general. And given the success of API-driven economies and the API products more generally within the synchronous world, certainly it would be pretty awesome if we could accomplish the same thing within EDA. And I think that would both helps EDA grow, and the growth of EDA helps event API products become more prominent. It's a sort of virtuous circle. So I think async API can lead the way in it. I think that the synchronous world gives us a nice little template as to how to accomplish it. And like we were talking about, Open API serves a huge role in terms of the API economy. Um, Async API, I think, has the real potential to serve the same kind of function within the API products for on the event-driven side.
All right, that's a problem solved.
Problem
That
solved.
is problem
Async
solved. Boom,
API.
drop the mic.
That was
Use
easy.
async
All right, let's
API.
call it a day.
So let's call it a day. Done. But this
Done.
is like I really like your kind of comparison between REST and eventing, because any movement forward in the event driven architecture world took some kind of inspiration from what has been done with the rest. So talking about specifications, we started with specifying REST APIs with Open API specs. This gave the birth of async API specification to specify asynchronous events in the event API and the event-driven architecture. And then with the bundling and exposing and sharing and collaboration aspects of REST APIs, there was API products. And now we kind of took inspiration from the API products and created what we called an event API products. And that's kind of the parallel between, what's happening in the REST API world could happen as well with the event-driven architecture world, but we take kind of inspiration from these two and walk parallel with this.
But
Yeah.
hold up one second. I am
Hmm.
a I'm an architect. I do a lot of
Hmm.
stuff on PowerPoint. I do a lot of talking at conferences. You are
Right.
down in the trenches thinking about doing stuff, doing real stuff, typing on computers, programming. So take me through, I think I have a pretty good idea about at a high level what these use
Hmm.
cases are, but give me the real deal. How would you do this as a DevRel guy who actually does stuff for a living?
Well, put your seatbelt on and hop on this journey that I'm going to take you on how we can take things from PowerPoint slides to put it in real world use cases. And I really want to cover a particular real world use case where REST APIs could really interact hand in hand with event-driven APIs. So let's assume that you have a kind of this use case, and you are an e-commerce platform. You have customers interacting with your order management system via REST APIs. And when I say customers, you can also think of it as other stakeholders that are interacting with your order management system via REST APIs. So this is kind of your typical REST API interaction, request response, and pulling off data from your order management system. These REST APIs are governed by OpenAPI spec. There's specifications, documentations around these REST APIs. And in fact, if some of these REST APIs from the order management system want to be bundled and exposed as API products, they could be done so and kind of documented, specified using OpenAPI. So this is where kind of the OpenAPI specs come in place. Now, what's happening behind the scenes is, your order management system, there's an underlying implementation where there's different microservices or different things that is happening, and this is where kind of asynchronous EDA implementations and interaction come in place, where you have kind of an inventory system, a shipping system, a CRM system. You can even have a fraud detection system. You can have a consumer sentiment system where in real time it publishes events and subscribe to other events and get these information from these events, and could also kind of sometimes send status updates to your consumer, customer stakeholders. Now, the same way we said that OpenAPI specification is used to specify your REST APIs, and if you want to bundle your REST APIs, you bundle them as API products. You could do the same thing. We could take an inspiration from how this is done in the REST API world and do it in your asynchronous world, where you have other stakeholders who are also interested to know about kind of the different inventory systems. Let's say that you're building an analytics engine by, like, a third party stakeholder who wants exposure to your underlying systems and wants to publish events about their analytics into your own system. This is where event API products shine. This is where async API shines. This is where the collaboration, exposure of business capabilities in the eventing world also come to place in a very interesting use case. And again, once we enable different stakeholders, businesses, organizations to use event API products, you are moving forward in a much, much faster process. You're enabling innovation, you're enabling creativity, and you're enabling better development in your underlying organization in a much better way. So this is kind of like one example of how things are. Jesse, you have a question?
And more of a comment, actually. And I think it's
Yeah.
really important to point out that it's not an either or kind of situation. Like REST
Thank you.
APIs versus async APIs. I can't tell you the number of clients that I've been talking to just over the past month who say what we really want is one-stop shopping for both internal users and external users to see every option available, both synchronous APIs and async
Hmm.
APIs in one
Hmm.
place, and they get to pick which API makes sense for them in the particular use case. What they don't want is a sort of bifurcated world where you go over here for REST APIs and you go over here for your async APIs. They want it all in one place. They want the tooling, you know, the swagger kind of thing where you get to do a sample and click here and you get to see the sample reply really easily. That's the kind of look that people are talking about, and I think that's the convergence between REST APIs and async APIs and
Hmm.
the API products. It's truly not sort of event API products. It's not normal API products. Period. It's everything together. Who cares how we get it? We just want to get it the way we
Totally,
want to have what we want to have. So it's a great example that you have there.
totally. Yeah. All right. So we get the point. We understand that event API products are important. We know kind of what are the benefits of event API products. What are the steps that we need to create event API products? And we kind of like summarize some steps needed to create event API products. And from our perspective, the journey to successful creation of event API products, we broke them down into 5 different steps. Shall we go over them, Jesse?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So, 5 steps to creating event API products. Step one, discover the
So
events of your system.
yeah, I would say this is sort of like the arugula step of the
Yes.
process because you're gathering system events. Either you're talking with people and discussing like, hey, this is what events we're putting out onto our broker, or you're writing some sort of automated program that detects events and brings them into some sort of catalog. This is the boring hard work that unfortunately is really really necessary to, as we build up the value chain, figure out what we can combine. So level one, arugula.
One, arugula. Level two, we have the assess. What do you think of the assess and the usability and the value?
So I think also you can have this big pile of system events slash arugula, but if you as long as you don't sort of
Hmm.
parse out what's helpful, what's not helpful, this is sort of the sorting of, oh, this is delicious arugula leaf that will be nice and peppery versus, oh, this has been sitting out here. This arugula is useful for one particular purpose, but not so great for a delicious salad that I'm building. So, two, again, not so fun, but really really useful in the quest for a
And
good salad.
important.
Yeah.
And then curate, bundling the events, kind of like figuring out what is the events that we need to curate.
Yeah, and I think this is slightly more fun, and this is a little bit more creative, where you think,
Hmm.
all right, these are really important things, but how do they fit together like a piece of a puzzle? So I think here you're figuring out what kind of dressing you're going to pair with the arugula to really bring out that freshness. I would recommend a ranch because I always recommend ranch no matter what, but your preferences may be different.
Nice. And then before the last, we got the release process, kind of like releasing the bundled APIs events.
For sure. Yeah, and this is the fun part. I think this is as we said before, the bacon and cheese layer of the salad. This is where you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor and
Hmm.
see people really creatively using this bundle that you've created and evangelizing it. And the one thing we haven't really talked too much about is the evangelization, the socialization of these things. And so
Hmm.
getting to this part of the process is where I think you really get to have fun with your APIs and then in turn see how people use them in ways that you never thought were possible.
And then finally, we got the manage aspect where you can like evolve and optimize. This is where you've done the discovery of your underlying system. You've curated what are the events that you want to bundle and expose, and you've actually bundled them in an event API product, released it into for your other stakeholders to use, and finally you got the manage aspect. You can manage the event API products, and this is kind of like a continuous cycle where you continuously look at the end of what are the event API products that you released and you want to manage.
Totally. And you're thinking, man, maybe next time I throw some croutons on there because that would
Yeah,
really, really improve this. This is sort of, the evolution of salad, and we always have to come back for our next meal, and we always have to think about what our next API should be.
totally. Man, Jesse, that was a fruitful conversation we've had around event API products, about salads. It was a very delicious
Yeah.
conversation. I'm pretty hungry right now, but it's great. I really hope we gave our audience or whoever is listening to this talk an idea on the importance of event API products, how to do them, what are the different steps that are needed behind just working with event API products, and Jesse, we are just scratching the surface on how things are being done. There's so many different things with Event API products. I know what we have with our tool, the PubSub Plus Event Portal, which is a platform to help people manage their underlying event-driven architecture. We have a way to work with Event API products that we didn't even delve more into it. But again, this was kind of just to scratch the surface, introduce the importance of Event API products and how Async API fits with all of this. So throughout the whole process, throughout the whole journey, Async API is a passenger seat in this Event API products journey, where you want to specify, you want to communicate what your Event APIs are all about. This is where you use Async API to specify and document and explain what are the things behind your Event API products.
Totally agree. I would
Cool.
call it the bowl, actually.
Hmm. That's actually
The
a
bowl,
good
the bowl which
analogy
constrains and defines the structure of your APIs,
of your salad.
of your salad.
Amazing. Okay, so I did have a kind of like a last slide, which is a where to next, and I kind of you touched on it. Do you have anything else that you want to kind of like cover for where to next after this, Jesse?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting space, and I'm certainly influenced a lot by flow architectures, the movement behind sort of creating a worldwide flow of events throughout different enterprises. And I think seeing us expose out uh, Event API products immediately leads
Hmm.
to questions such as, well, how do we find these Event API products? Um, and so I think that leads immediately to questions about discoverability, and
Hmm.
also questions about, we can't have humans going and deploying infrastructure to support these events that are going out of particular enterprises. So how do we support more universal provisioning rules and allow people to get access to their event APIs without dropping an email out to an administrator, then 5 days later you get a queue deployed
Hmm.
for you? I think those, as that slide sort of revealed at the last moment, speed is key. I think speed, both in terms of creating the event API products, but also discovering them, implementing them, uh, tightening up that cycle is going to be key for the next evolution of event API products. And I think there's a huge role for standards to be
Hmm.
used there as well, both probably within an async API and other organizations as well. But in general, I feel like a very, very interesting, exciting time to be involved with both async
Totally.
API and EDA more generally.
Okay, perfect. I think that kind of wraps up our talk for today. Jesse, thank you again for shedding some light on some of the information that we talked about. For anyone listening to us or watching us live or recorded right now, if you want more information, if you want to continue the conversation, please join the Solace community at solace.community. We have a lot of people talking about different aspects of event-driven architecture, including Event API products. So if this was a topic of your interest, or you kind of learned something new, hop on the Solace community, send us a message, let us know if this was useful or not, or if you kind of learned some new things about this. You'll find myself and Jesse in the community answering questions and chatting with people. So that's about it. Jesse, do you have anything else to say, or we're good?
I'm gonna go get a salad right now.
Me too. I'm gonna go get a salad. All right, Jesse, thank you very much, and take care, everyone. Bye bye.